to start off by removing the wheel, 21mm socket, remove all 6 of your lug nuts. I'm going to start by removing these little cotter pins for the slider locking pins, and these things sometimes get rusty, so just grab it with a pair of locking pliers, work it back and forth. You can press it and remove it, twist it while you remove it. Okay, now you can remove this retainer here. Do the same to the top. Remove the cotter pin and remove this pin. Alright, now with a pry bar, what I'm going to do is stick it right in between here and try to pry the caliper away. That'll hopefully compress the pistons just a little bit, enough to release the pads off the rotor. I'm going to slowly pry the pads out of here. They basically have to come out straight, and any sort of angle will basically lock them in. So I'm going to try and grab on with some locking pliers. Alright, with 2 pairs of locking pliers I can wiggle these back and forth and slowly remove the pad. There's one. And this one is a little bit looser now that the other pad is out. If your brake kit didn't come with pins, which it should, you can clean these up and reuse them. Same for the cotter pins, unless they're completely rotted and in very poor condition. I actually have new ones, so this is all trash for me. So I'm going to start by removing this clip down there off of this brake hose bracket. We're going to have to remove that bolt for the ABS wire. That's a 10mm. Okay, take that off, and now take this off. Should be a 12. There we go. Try not to bend the brake. Try not to bend the brake line too much. Right behind the caliper, there's a 17mm bolt down here and another one up here. Remove both of them. Oops. Okay. Now that that one's out, leave it in just a couple threads. Remove the top one. Now remove both of them and take the caliper and set it aside right on top here so it can be out of your way. And now you can remove the rotor, which if it's frozen onto the hub, you can usually hammer it from the back side and hammer it off, or in between the studs here. Just make sure you don't hit the studs. Now with a wire brush, I'm going to clean up the surface of the hub here. This one isn't in too bad of condition, but if yours is very rusty, you're going to have to use whatever it takes to take the rust chunks off, so whether that's a sanding disc of some sort. But basically you want it nice and clean, free of any debris. Okay, for the edges right here, I'm actually going to use this sanding disc just a little bit. Alright, you basically want to just remove all those little bumps. That way your rotor can sit flush. Oh, don't. That way it doesn't rust up and the rotor doesn't seize for. Alright, let's get the new rotor and put it on. If you don't have the performance rotors, if you have the regular flat ones, they will come coated with oil, so you have to take some brake parts cleaner and wipe it down both on the front and on the back before installation. These performance ones are coated with a special coating that is not oily. I'm going to use this special caliper depression tool. What this is going to do is push in both side pistons at once. A lot of times if you do just one side, you push in one side, the other side will pop out. I mean, you can try and it might work, but it's best to have this tool, which will push them in evenly, and you want to go slow. And if for some reason you have a lot of force pushing back on the caliper pistons, that means it's most likely seized and you need a new caliper. For me, they all pushed back perfectly. So what I want to do now, before I install the caliper, is this one is not in bad condition, so it doesn't need a whole lot of cleaning. But you can use a wire brush and gently scrub off the surface here where the pad ears ride. Then I'm going to apply just a tiny layer of grease. You don't need a lot, you just need a thin coating, enough for the pads to slide and so it can prevent some rust buildup. And do this to all four. I'm also going to apply a little bit of grease to the outer ring of these pistons. That's going to allow the pads to operate quietly and smoothly. Now take your caliper and slide it on. Try not to get the grease on the rotor. And get your bolts. Line up the caliper. Okay, start the bolts in by hand, that way you make sure they're not cross-threading. And start in the top one. Now let's snug them up. Torque them to 91 foot-pounds. To put the pads in, the outer one is the one without the wear indicator. Slide it on, or slide it in. And the one with the wear indicator goes on the inside, and I like to put it at the top because as the rotor spins this way, it'll make contact with the wear indicator, and once your brakes get low, it'll make a squealing noise and let you know that your brakes are low. Now let's get the pins that should have come with your brake kit. For the old brakes, they were actually put on backwards. These are supposed to go from the outside in. Line it up with the holes in the caliper bracket and on the pads. Press it on all the way. Then they have these little cotter pins at the end. Press those on to lock it in. And before you put the bottom one in, you actually have to take this spring and install it into the pads, and then make sure that it goes in the middle between the two pads, but also this pin needs to go through the bottom of it. So it's kind of, it can be a little bit tricky. Basically what this does is it spreads the pads apart from each other. These little ears need to actually go over. Kind of like that. There we go. Now you can take your little cotter pin and press it on, make sure it's locked. Now line up this bracket here on the knuckle and put in your bolt to secure it. Snug it up. And now resecure the ABS bracket here. And then there was one more clip for the ABS wire on the bottom of this bracket. Click that into place. Now you can do the same thing on the other side, and let's put the wheel on. Go ahead and put on your wheel. Start on all 6 of your lug nuts. Snug them up. Go ahead and torque these to 83 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. You're all set.